Thanks for joining us for show number 80. 80 straight months the governor has been with us for this program once a month, and he's at your service. The number again is 877-217-5757. Louisiana Radio Network News Director Jeff Palermo is producing, and in studio Jerry Mayer from Hometown Productions. And I know some of you are watching this. It's a multimedia presentation because of Jerry Mayer and Hometown Productions. And Governor John Bel Edwards last joined us in October, and at that time, the LSU football team was reeling a bit. My things have changed, and the governor went to Arkansas this past Saturday in Fayetteville, saw LSU beat Arkansas 13-10 on a 34-degree day in Fayetteville, and LSU is now champion of the West and poised to play in the SEC championship game first Saturday in December in Atlanta against Georgia, and the governor is somewhat disappointed. You won't be there, will you?
I won't be able to go to the SEC championship game, but I am looking forward to some postseason beyond that that I'll be able to go to. And surely we'll have at least a bowl game. And, of course, and if we win that, I don't think there's any way LSU doesn't make it into the four-team championship. So we'll
Georgia.
see. Yeah. And by the way, one of the strange things that happened Saturday night was after LSU won, I actually pulled for Alabama. So pulling against Ole Miss is something I'm accustomed to, but pulling for Alabama, not so much.
Well, it's been a good first year for Brian Kelly, and after the Tennessee loss at home by 3 touchdowns, it didn't look so good, but my, how things change, and LSU legitimately is now 5 wins away from a national title.
Yeah, that's
the last
exciting.
Two will be tough, though.
Yeah, and just real quick, and I know we got some other things to talk about. I will tell you that the atmosphere, the crowd, the game, the lead changes, the fact that it went to overtime, we won on the last play of overtime with a 2-point conversion, probably the best experience I've ever had. At a college football game, period. And I've gone to an awful lot of them. And it was a really, really special, opportunity, I think, for all the LSU fans who could be in the stadium. And I suspect that it came across to those watching on TV, too, to really celebrate something that was big for that program. And I'm very happy for the players and for the coaches. And, it's tough. I just want you to think about what that bowl game looked like in January of this year when LSU played in a bowl game after Coach Orgeron had been dismissed and so forth. It was about as ugly an event as I've ever seen. And to be where we are, it just goes to show what you can do when you work together.
877-217-5757. There also was an election a week ago, 8 days ago, and it didn't turn out as many anticipated. Democrats actually have regained control of the United States Senate. Even if Raphael Warnock is unseated by Herschel Walker, it'll still be 50-50 with Kamala Harris casting the deciding vote. And now both U.S. senators have said they're looking at the prospect of potentially running for your job. This would be a great irony. Some other states, I think it's viewed as a promotion when a governor becomes a senator, but Louisiana, the governor's office has a great pull. What do you think about the prospect of Kennedy and or Cassidy running?
Well, first of all, it's a great job. I feel immensely privileged to be able to do this job every day, so I understand it from that perspective. Secondly, neither one of them have a reelection next year, so they can afford to run without giving up the job that they have. So it makes sense from that perspective as well. And then they're both going to be in the minority again. And so they may want to do something a little bit differently. But I really don't want to speak for them. And I think they both have indicated that within the next several days they're likely to make an announcement. And we will see what they announce. But it is that time. With our election now for the primary election at least being less than a year away, it's time for, and these midterms being over, it's time for people to kind of get in or get out. And so I think between now and the first of the year, you're going to have a lot of announcements. And so I think some will be surprising because that seems to always happen.
The election, by the way, is only 47 weeks from Saturday. So that's probably why Senator Kennedy, who just won 6 days later, said, I'm looking at running for governor. It doesn't have a whole lot of time to pull the trigger. But he just won a 6-year term with 62% of the votes. And it gives even more credence to the fact that you defied the odds not once but twice as a Democrat winning statewide. Now, you're about to leave. Is it possible for another Democrat in any office to win a statewide race right now?
Oh, sure. And in fact, there are tremendous parallels between the way the next election is shaping up and the one that I had back in 2015. And I'm not on the inside of the Republican Party, as you know, so I don't know firsthand why they did what they did. But with the executive committee issuing an endorsement of the Attorney General, I think that kind of caused Senator Kennedy to put that information out there that he's looking at the race because he doesn't want too many commitments to be made to Jeff Landry should he decide to run. But again, that's on their side of the fence, and I'm not 100% sure what's going on there.
My guess is that if there is a viable Democrat who runs, you will be supportive of the standard bearer of your party.
Yes.
And one of those who is considering it is your Secretary of Transportation. What about Sean Wilson? Would he be a good candidate?
First of all, Sean would be good at whatever he wants to do. He has been a tremendous public servant for many, many years through multiple administrations. He was elected by his colleagues to be the president of AASHTO, which is all of the state transportation officials across the country elected him president. At the time I made him the Secretary of DOTD here, Dr. Wilson was the only African-American Secretary of Transportation Development anywhere in the country. And so I have tremendous respect for him and his ability. I don't know whether that's something he fully intends to do or not, but I can tell you without any reservations, he is a tremendous public servant.
Has he talked with you?
Yes, but not in any detail. And I wouldn't. I don't have any confidences to betray, but I wouldn't do it if I did.
Okay, but he did say, "Hey, I'm looking at this, and that would make sense." And after all, you're his boss, and you have the job that he may be gunning for. It would make sense. We'll talk more with the governor. Go to the phone lines again, 877-217-5757. We're back after this brief pause. This is Jim Inkster. Thank you for joining us for Talk Louisiana, 877-217-5757. The governor of Louisiana is with us for the 80th consecutive month, and through the almost 7 years he's been in office, he's become an astute observer of local and national politics, and as mentioned, last Tuesday did not go as well as expected for the Republican Party. It appears the GOP will regain control of the U.S. House, and Steve Scalise will be the majority leader. He has vaulted to high places and, of course, survived an assassin's attack. I would say Mr. Scalise is well positioned right now. Can he help Louisiana in that post?
Oh, sure. First of all, we need our delegation more than most states because you have all the normal stuff, whether it's funding for education, transportation, economic development opportunities, all that. But when you have more than your fair share of disasters, you're always asking Congress for additional help specifically for your state in the form of appropriations and so forth. And so we've been doing that quite a bit because of the natural disasters and so forth. So when you have a great congressional delegation, that helps. And when you have members of your congressional delegation in leadership in the majority party, that certainly helps. And I was able to congratulate Steve Scalise both on his reelection and then yesterday on the vote that he got from his conference to be majority leader. And it looks like it's going to be a 3 or 4 seat majority, not much by historical standards. And so I think his hands are going to be full. But obviously, I wish him luck. And we have first of all, we're friends towards one another. We're friends, and then we have a good working relationship as well.
I think it may be the LSU thing that brings you together. Both of you are avid Tiger fans, but Scalise he's a study in persistence, and I think that district has produced him and David Vitter and Bob Livingston and Bobby Jindal. It's been a powerful entree to local and national politics, but it'll be fascinating to see what shakes out in the next 47 weeks. 877-217-5757. Rachel in Monroe. Rachel, you're on with Governor Edwards. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing fine, Rachel. Thank you.
Not a political question, but I was just wondering, with your daughter getting married this weekend, if you would be able to share what song you two will be dancing to.
I can. But it's intended to be a surprise for Sarah Ellen, and so I'm going to decline to say it. Other than the name Sarah is in the title of the song, and I don't know if there's more than one. So I may have just given it away. But Hannah will call you back and give you the information if you give Hannah your number. Because Sarah has been asking me every day for about a month, and I've said, no, Sarah, I'm not going to tell you. It'll come on, and you'll be surprised. But thank you, Rachel, for the question. And I'm very excited about Sarah Ellen is our second child, and she works in Washington, D.C. now, and she's home to be married on Friday night, and we'll be married at the cathedral, and then have the reception there at the governor's mansion.
Well,
I'm very proud of her, and welcome into our family Christopher Bates, her fiance.
Well, congratulations to you and the First Lady. And I hear it's somewhat expensive for the bride's family, these kinds of things.
Well, yes, it is. But these are things you just have to do, and it's going to be a beautiful wedding, and Donna, of course, is much more involved in the day-to-day stuff than I am. I try to stay out of their way, but it's going to be a very nice wedding, and I'm looking forward to it. And
in the last few days, you've been to university with your son, who's a prospective law student, correct?
Yes. So he went to U-High at LSU. Then now he's an undergrad at LSU, and so he's looking at law schools. He's already got a score on his LSAT, and of course he's a junior at LSU. He's got some more work to do. He's looking at law schools, and of course LSU remains a possibility for him, as Tulane and Loyola and so forth. But he's looking out of state as well. He's been within a couple of square blocks for 7 years now, and he's looking. We went to Charlottesville, Virginia, a couple of weeks ago, where the really tragic shooting happened this week. It also, by the way, one of the individuals who was shot was one of my son's classmates at U-High, who's on the football team there at UVA, and he just had his second surgery, and I understand he's doing well. And I'm asking everybody to lift him and all of those individuals and families up in prayer.
Did your son see him?
He did see him while we were up there. We were just driving through the campus, and he was able to see his classmate there and so forth. But just really, really tragic. And I think it'll be hard to understand, what motivates a young man to shoot his people that he goes to school with, people on the football team that, I don't know. I don't understand it.
And your son-in-law will be Christopher?
Christopher Bates from Benton, Louisiana.
Benton, Louisiana.
Yeah.
North Country.
Almost in Arkansas. Almost your home state.
Yeah, almost. But now it's always, I hear, intimidating for the groom-to-be to meet the family. Did he ask for your permission, your consent?
He did. Of course, I let as soon as the boyfriends of my two daughters got serious enough and they dated long enough, I let them know that was an expectation that I had.
Really?
Just like I had to go ask my father-in-law for permission to marry Donna, and it just gives you an opportunity to have that conversation with them. And Christopher was good enough to do that, and that was some time back. But yeah, he did.
Nick in Crowley. Nick, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Jim, thanks for taking the call. And Governor, my question is this. You took office in January of 2016, and we're approaching January of 2023. If you could do it, what would the John Bell Edwards of 2023 tell the John Bell Edwards of 2016? What advice would you give yourself if you could look back over these last few years?
Wow, Nick, I hadn't really thought about it in those terms before. I guess, first of all, that time is going to go by much faster than you think, and maybe this is for everybody as you get older, but certainly the years that I've been governor, and maybe it's because we just have been so busy and so forth, It goes by really fast. And so on your most important initiatives, the things that you really want to get accomplished, you got to push them early. Because there's an old saying around the Capitol, good ideas get implemented right away. Bad ideas get implemented right away, and good ideas take longer. And so pushing harder, maybe early on. But having said that, we were $2 billion short, and it's special session after special session, and really addressing that shortfall was the most important thing for us to do at the outset, and we turned out to be successful. And Nick, the reason that was so hard is because just about everything we had to do required a 2/3 vote from a legislature, the majority of which were Republican, while I was a Democratic governor. And so I think having people like Jay Darden, a Republican who I think had instant credibility with everybody in the legislature, was very helpful. So I guess I'd have to give it a lot more thought, but hopefully I'll get a chance in about a year from now to sit down with the governor-elect and have that conversation with them, whoever he or she may be, and you've given me something to think about between now and then.
Thank you, Nick. Jamie in Covington. Hi, Jamie. You're on the air with Governor Edwards.
Hi, Jim, and thank you for taking my call. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm calling about one of those bad ideas that's now been implemented. I wanted to ask the governor about what your thoughts were when you signed Senate Bill 221, Act 480, from the 2021 legislature that now will be implemented, as I understand it, next year, that Louisiana will have to use paper ballots in future elections. I think that's a bad idea. And as I understand it, a bill before the legislature was actually changed in the last 5 hours of that legislative session to change the wording from an auditable paper recording to actual paper ballots.
All right.
Yeah.
First
of all, Jamie, thank you very much. I don't believe that your characterization of the bill is correct. The primary means of casting a vote, and that vote being recorded, will continue to be electronic. There will be a backup electric ballot that, should there be an audit or a recount, you have that means to count those votes. And by the way, those votes should be counted by machine. And I say this all the time too, because if you want to guard against fraud or error, and we should guard against both, you shouldn't have human beings counting thousands and thousands of pieces of paper, and so forth. And if banks believe the best way to count $100 bills is through a machine, we should have machines that count these paper ballots, but it would only be a backup. And I think that's the direction that the Secretary of State is headed with the committee. So I think your characterization of the bill is incorrect. But just to be sure, I'm going to go back and pull it. But I don't believe that what you said is correct.
Thank you, Jamie. James in Longview. Hey, James. Welcome back. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Jim, and hi, Governor Edwards. I guess one of the victors last week in the elections was Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's now in the governor's seat, or soon to be, in the adjacent state of Arkansas. My question is, do you think she will be helpful to work on in a cooperative manner with you and your fellow governors?
Yes, I do. First of all, I don't know her. I've not met her, and I have a very good professional and personal relationship with Governor Asa Hutchinson, and he's leaving office in Arkansas. In fact, I was at the game with him on Saturday morning. I hope I didn't wear out my welcome too much, because I can be sort of, I'm not a fan, I'm a fanatic, but I was on my best behavior. But we have a special relationship with Arkansas. As you know, it's a neighbor, contiguous to us, and so we have a lot of things that we have to do together. But we also are two of the three states participating along with Oklahoma in a HALO initiative for a hydrogen hub that will be awarded by the U.S. Secretary of Energy, up to 8 hubs around the country. We are putting forward a joint proposal that's not only 3 states, but it's bipartisan. And with Governor Hutchinson leaving office in January, then the working relationship will be between me and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, as you just mentioned. And I have every expectation that we're going to get along just fine and pursue that hydrogen hub and other things that will be to our mutual advantage as well.
Now, I believe Governor Hutchinson's the only Republican in the South to take the Medicaid money under the Affordable Care Act in the South.
Yeah, well, that actually happened under his predecessor just before he left office, I think, Governor Beebe.
Who was a Democrat.
It was a Democrat, and then he kept it, and of course, nobody who's accepted it has ever tried to get rid of it.
So what happens now?
It's a really good deal. Well, we will see. I'm not that familiar with what Governor-elect Sanders' platform is, but I haven't heard that she intends to do anything differently.
She would, but what about Louisiana?
Oh, well, I can't imagine. If you just know how good this has been, we have below the national average in terms of the percentage of our people without health insurance today. And we had among the highest, and we're saving money. We haven't lost a single rural hospital, Jim. I can't imagine somebody's going to come in and undo that.
This is Jim Inkster. Thank you for joining us for Ask the Governor. 877-217-5757. 80 consecutive months starting in April of 2016, right after Governor Edwards took office, and he has been with us dutifully every month. So we've got 80 down and 13 to go, and the governor, of course, constitutionally cannot run for a third consecutive term. He could run for office for governor later on, but not in 2023. And he, of course, could run for other offices, but he's made his intentions known that he plans on practicing law and probably earning a great deal more than he is as governor of Louisiana. When you look, for example, at what the football coach at LSU earns and what Governor Edwards earns, I don't even know if it's 1%. It may not be. When you factor in all the incentives and such, but that's the market. And Governor, I know that you've been very proud to serve as governor for 2 terms, and you're the first Democrat to win consecutive terms, I believe, since Edwin Edwards in 1975. So you defied the odds, not once but twice.
Well, I think that's why they wrote a book called Long Shot. Yeah, I did, but I will tell you that I was always much more confident than others that we had a viable path to win. And then the reelection. So the election, I think, was very special and meaningful to me, and I think obviously good for the state. The reelection was in some ways harder. Because you had an incumbent president who made it his business to come down 3 times to campaign against me while he was very popular in our state. But by that time, the people of Louisiana knew me well enough that they discounted the vast majority of things that he would say about me. It had no basis in truth. It's the same thing he said about everybody that he campaigned against, and we were able to win re-election. And I feel very fortunate to have this opportunity. We still have more than a year left. We're going to be busy every single day, but it has been a tremendous privilege for me, and it's one of the things that I'll be giving thanks for next week at Thanksgiving, along with the fact that we had our best storm season in 31 years. And I'd ask everybody to remember to give thanks for that.
And it was predicted to be much more intense than it was.
Yes.
Now, the former president, Mr. Trump, he won 2 landslides in Louisiana and got well over 80% of the white vote, if that's the right term, which means that for you to win twice, you had to get a lot of the votes that he got.
Oh, yeah. I would always get a little kick out of seeing a vehicle, and it happened more than once, and it had bumper stickers, you know. You'd have Trump on one side of the bumper and Edwards on the other. But you know, we knew that was going to be the case. And you just have to put together a winning coalition, and we were able to do that and attract enough independent and moderate Republicans. And, you know, I think we made a big enough positive difference that we were able to get reelected because we expanded Medicaid and because we fixed the fiscal problems and started investing in education again and so forth. And I think the people around Louisiana, by and large, were happy with that, and we were able to withstand the campaign against me that he aided so much.
It was close, though.
Well, it was close, but we won.
40,000 votes.
That's right.
Yeah, 40.
I mean, you see states right now with many more voters than Louisiana that are being decided in this race last week with less votes than that.
Well, in Florida, for example, 4 years ago, DeSantis won by just a few thousand votes.
Correct.
In a huge state.
And then about a 19-point win this year.
So he is a guy I'm sure you run into every now and then, and you've had some dealings with him lately. Has he been easy
first
to
of
work
all,
with?
Our relationship is professional. So I was able to call him in advance of the hurricane striking Florida and made sure that we were leaning forward and that if he asked for assistance from Louisiana, he was going to get it. But he wouldn't just be getting, for example, National Guardsmen and helicopters or trucks. He was going to get soldiers and airmen who were very experienced recently in dealing with hurricane recovery efforts and so forth. And that was true for folks who went from GOSEP and they went from DCFS and you name it. So we were able to have that conversation. And so the one thing about it is, and I'll just say it this way, governors, there's only one per state. Either something happens or it doesn't happen, but you're responsible. And so regardless of party, we really do work together. In Congress, it's rare that one person's vote makes a difference one way or another. And I think that that's why you have a lot more sort of political posturing and so forth. It really is a lot different among governors.
877-217-5757. And before we go back to the phone lines, in the last month, your Department of Children and Family Services Secretary, Marquita Garner-Walters, resigned, and under circumstances that were not pleasant. Your thoughts?
Well, very tough. First, let me say this. I love Marquita Walters, and she was a dedicated public servant for a long time, not just during my administration. And I saw her do tremendously good and beneficial things for families and children, a record number of adoptions, for example, the way that she's responsible for sheltering after disasters. We did that multiple times, including the first non-congregant sheltering program because of COVID ever run. She revolutionized the way we do disaster SNAP benefits because we didn't want to have people all go into the offices the way they had done it before, so we did them virtually. Very difficult situation when the number of cases of actual and suspected abuse and neglect increases so much and so rapidly as you have fewer caseworkers to deal with that, and it's part of the labor shortage that's permeating the public and private sector right now. But having said all that, we made some changes in policies and procedures, as well as personnel, after the first unfortunate incident some time back where we had a child who was exposed to fentanyl and died. It wasn't followed in another case. And so while I'm confident that the changes that have been started and are in the process of being implemented are the right thing to do, and by the way, we have a third-party validator of that in now. I hope it'll be a validation with Casey Family Foundation. They're in at DCFS now, and that had been scheduled for some time, by the way. So I was confident that we started the right thing in terms of the changes. But obviously, having another incident that was so similar, it just became, I think, necessary for her, and she made this determination to submit a resignation so that the agency would be able to focus and on those changes that needed to be made, rather than on the failures that had occurred.
Rebecca in New Orleans. Hello, Rebecca. You're on Ask the Governor.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Hello, Governor. So in the last couple of years, we've had a tough time in Louisiana with the storms and, of course, the impact of climate change. And you have a lot of good things in motion, and that's great. What I'm wondering about, though, is the impact on things that have occurred in the past that still haven't been fully repaired, things like Cancer Alley and Gordon Plaza. I'm wondering if there's any discussion occurring within your administration that is intending to address the needs of the people still in those situations.
Well, Rebecca, thank you very much for the call. We have had challenges, as you mentioned, storms, and you didn't mention the pandemic, but certainly that one. And we are addressing climate change as only Gulf South state with a climate action plan to get us to net zero by 2050. And we're having tremendous success. And by the way, that's going to be key to economic development, job creation, investment as well going forward. I will tell you, I don't like the characterization of Cancer Alley, because we have an award-winning tumor registry with the federal government that is recognized as being among the best that any state has. And it just doesn't show elevated rates of cancer between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And so it's kind of, I understand that people like to use that. And more recently, actually during the pandemic, we went in and audited, surveyed certain areas between Baton Rouge and New Orleans to determine whether there were any reportable cancers that were not in the tumor registry, and found none. Now, if there are other health-related issues because of exposure to emissions and so forth, then we need to figure that out. And in fact, if the federal government's going to keep saying things like that at EPA, we've asked them to come in and help us to determine that. But the name that you just gave to it, I believe, based on all the information I have, is inaccurate.
This is Jim Inkster. Thank you for joining us for Ask the Governor. Another quarter hour to go with Governor John Bell Edwards on show number 80, 877-217-5757. That line is open if you'd like to grab it. Let's go back to the phone lines. Joan in New Orleans. Hello, Joan. You're on Ask the Governor. Good afternoon. There we go.
For your service, keeping us safe during COVID, and the excellent coverage from Medicaid expansion. I would like to ask what your top two priorities are for the remainder of your administration, and what your greatest hope for Louisiana is.
Well, first of all, Joan, thank you very much for the call and the kind words. I really appreciate it. And I will tell you, the Medicaid expansion I did on the first day, still the best thing that I've done. Is the easiest big decision. I think it's paid dividends for hundreds of thousands of Louisianans who didn't have working poor people, by the way, who didn't have access to health care coverage before. And it actually played a role in keeping people alive during COVID because they were healthier than they otherwise would have been. And you know who COVID most adversely affected were those with those underlying pre-existing conditions that were not under control. So with respect to the two biggest priorities, well, first of all, maintaining our education funding levels where we're investing again, which was the number one reason I ran for governor to begin with, and especially in the area of early childhood education, because I believe if we will continue to invest in early childhood education robustly as we are now, that within a generation we will transform our state and achieve those education outcomes that have eluded us for far too long. And but the teacher pay raise and so forth is going to be incredibly important as well. So, and there are a lot of priorities out there, but that certainly is one of the biggest ones. I think is that education funding. And then making sure that we work together in this last year, because it wouldn't take much to get derailed. It's a legislative session that's fiscal in nature. It's 2 months and runs April and May and the first little piece of June, but it's an election year, and so I'm hopeful that we won't have individuals filing bills, not necessarily because they think they're good ideas that should pass, but because they're more interested in creating something they can talk about in their election. And I hope we just don't get off course and chase those kind of things down various rabbit holes. But we keep our eyes squarely focused on Louisiana and maintaining the momentum that we've been able to achieve in so many areas.
Do you think the rail line between Baton Rouge and New Orleans will happen in your term?
Yeah, well, yes. Well, we're advancing that. I don't know that you're going to see passengers on a train between Baton Rouge and New Orleans during my term, but we're advancing the project to the point where I think it's absolutely going to be successful. We have buy-in from the railroad now, from Amtrak, from obviously the folks here at DOTD. You got the legislature that appropriated the money. So I think it's going to happen. There's some challenges around the timing, just because you have a consolidation between Canadian Pacific and the Kansas City Southern, and that is not yet approved. But we also have some infrastructure issues over the Bonnet-Carré Spillway. So you've got a relatively low speed limit for trains, and we got to get that infrastructure upgraded in order to make it work. But we're putting all that together. We're applying for Chrissy grant for some of that funding. I think we're going to be successful. I've had several meetings with Amtrak here recently, so I do believe that we're going to get that. And by the way, we're also looking at passenger rail along the I-20 corridor that would connect Dallas and Meridian, Mississippi, and then on over to Atlanta after that. And the folks in North Louisiana are very excited about that as well.
Now, I've seen numerous studies, Governor, that show that we as a state have a higher percentage, I think second in the nation, of people who are native born who live here. And in some ways that's good, but in other ways we would, of course, I think, like to attract people from other states to move to Louisiana. How do we do that?
Well, first of all, making sure you have a diverse economy that is growing and that you're receiving investments. In the short term, I can tell you, really not all that short term. For the foreseeable future, clean energy is going to be critically important for us, and understanding that there is a transition, and that if you don't have renewable electricity available, if you don't have a net zero commitment, and so forth, you're just not going to get the investments going forward. We will not be an energy state 50 years from now if we don't embrace wind and solar and hydrogen and ammonia, if you don't do biofuels and so forth. And we're doing all of those things now. And I really think that is going to be the key to us to getting that investment, having the jobs and the careers here, and making sure that we have a growing economy that will attract and retain talent from around the country. And by the way, it is great that we have one of the highest percentages of people who choose to stay in their state. If you look at all of the natural disasters that have happened to our state over the last several decades, the fact that we have grown at the national average in this most recent census, we didn't drop, we didn't lose it. That's right. But we have as many states ahead of us and behind us as we did before. And so that is a strong indication that the people in Louisiana really want to be here, because after all those evacuations, they keep coming back. And so addressing climate change is important too.
Stacy in Baton Rouge. Stacy, you're on with Governor Edwards.
Hi. First, hi, Jim and Governor Edwards. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done for people with disabilities in our state. I'm calling just kind of with some frustrations with special education. And I was wondering if you could particularly talk about the state of the special school district with the changes in superintendent, and then the letter that went out that showed all of the hundreds of thousands of dollars of unspent funds.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm following that as well, Stacy. The special school district is under the Department of Education, and quite frankly, as you know, I don't appoint the superintendent of education. The department isn't in my office. I do have 3 appointments to Bessie out of the 11 members. But I'm watching that too, and I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to navigate through that to the satisfaction of the vast majority of stakeholders, because I've seen so many individuals who have a vested interest in the school who are not happy. And talking specifically now about the school for the deaf and everything that's going on there. But I just don't have the firsthand knowledge to what did or didn't happen and why principal was removed and so forth to really to be able to respond. But I'm hopeful that's going to be resolved to the satisfaction of most people in short order.
Travis in New Orleans. Hello, Travis. You're on the air with Governor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Governor. I want to say, for starters, my wife and I love the work you've been doing there in the governor's mansion. We're sorry to see you go. I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm voted for you every chance I had. But I'm also a graduate of the Naval Academy, and the Army-Navy game's coming up before your next call-in, and I'd like to make a prediction.
Army wins. That's my prediction, Travis. Now, so by the way, thank you for calling, but thank you for your service to the country. And this time of year especially, if you're Army, the only thing you could think is beat Navy, and it's just the opposite if you're Navy. So I thank you for your service. I hope to get back to the Army-Navy game this year. It'll be in Philadelphia, and that'll be the first time since 1987 that I've attended the game. But Travis, you should know this about me when it comes to my elections and when it comes to football games. I always think my team is going to win. So all I can say is go Army and beat Navy.
And next year, many of your classmates from West Point will be in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so it's shaping up that way. October 21st of next year, Army's going to come in to play LSU, and it'll be my 35th class reunion, and there's a lot of interest being shown, and it looks like we could have a couple hundred or more of my classmates with their spouses and so forth. And I'm so proud of my class. Several four-star generals, many more than usually occur within any given class, and they're all really good friends of mine, and not just the four-star generals, just the contributions that have been made to our country by all of my classmates. I'm just so proud of them.
So which side of the field will you be on?
Well, I will probably be on the Army side, hanging out with my classmates. And Army should not beat LSU, so I don't think anybody's going to get terribly upset.
But when you were there, Army beat Tennessee.
Tennessee. We went to Tennessee in 1986, blocked a punt in the fourth quarter, recovered it in the end zone, and beat Johnny Major's Volunteers in front of that stadium. I was already holding 100,000 people, and it was a fantastic experience. I would not expect that anything like that's going to happen next year.
You never know, though. And Army's competitive, and Navy almost beat Notre Dame last week. So
yeah, Notre Dame didn't score a point in the second half.
No,
unbelievable.
Maybe they missed Brian Kelly.
Yeah, but go Army.
Well, Governor, we'll be back next month. I think it's December 15th, Frank Sinatra's birthday. Until then, thanks for listening. Stay tuned.